Hello, I'm Nathan B. Butler. This is my YouTube channel where you can find things like Star Wars Home Video year by year from the Star Wars Home Video library and so on. And this is the first in a new series of Q&A videos. I've done Q&A videos on the channel before, sometimes home video specific for Star Wars from the Star Wars Home Video library, sometimes very broad, sometimes little mini Q&A episodes. There's been a lot of different types that I've done here, but it's been a while since I've done any of them. So, as recording on Star Wars Home Video year by year was starting to wrap up, or at least get to the point where there won't be a need for new episodes until New Year's actually finish in real life, I decided, you know what? It's time to do some more Q&A episodes, especially because we've had a lot of new subscribers and viewers thanks to Star Wars Home Video year by year. That series really picked up a lot faster than I thought that it would. So rather than separating the Star Wars Home Video stuff from everything else, we'll just combine everything together here. I asked for questions back in April of 2025. I have quite a few here to answer. And as we go along here, feel free to ask questions in the comments for these videos. And what I'll try to do is grab those and sort of tuck them aside so that when I record more of these, I can answer some of those questions. If you'd like to have it answered in the comments, definitely tell me to do that. Otherwise, I will assume you're asking for a future video. And I'm recording all of these in late May of 2025. No idea how fast I'll be able to get these edited and out there, because at this point I have the entire rest of Star Wars Home Video year by year left to edit beyond what's already sort of set and ready to go, and some episodes are from the Star Wars Home Video library. So this is definitely not the priority series, but I will be getting these out from time to time, starting with the ones I'm able to record here today. My guess is you'll see several episodes with the same shirt, because that tends to be what I do when I'm recording Q&A episodes. A few at a time, chunked so they're not terribly long, but at the same time I can record a lot at once. So we start out with a question from @JacobDreamworks921, and please bear in mind that when I look at the questions, I see usernames. I do not see like your name. Even though your display name may say something more specific, all I can see are usernames here. So from JacobDreamworks921, I have a simple question. Can you listen to the Blast Points podcast episode 387 where they listen to different sound mixes of The Empire Strikes Back? Since they recently viewed a 70mm scan of the film. It's a great discovery of the 70mm cut of The Empire Strikes Back by Team -1. We start out with an odd question here, and my answer is sure. I can listen to it at some point. Honestly, the weird thing with me and podcast listening is I don't actually listen to a lot of Star Wars related podcasts at all anymore. I was a Star Wars podcaster, not counting Patreon, for 18 years. One of the absolute earliest, not the earliest, but one of the earliest with my first show launching back in 2002. But nowadays, when it comes to actually listening to stuff, I'm usually listening to things related to like the Supreme Court and law or news and current events and stuff like that when it comes to anything that I'm listening to podcast-wise. So I'll make a note there, Blast Points Podcast 387, to give it a listen. I would note, though, that while I am curious about that sort of thing, theatrical cuts and differences isn't really as much my bag as home video related stuff. So I'm not entirely sure whether that's going to be within my wheelhouse. But I'll make a note to give it a try this summer. The next one comes from @MartyDMC12. What are your odds that Disney/Lucasfilm and George will finally relent and we might see the original trilogy theatrical cuts come to 4K and Blu-ray in 2027 to commemorate the 50th anniversary? That and overall, what else do you think we might get for the 50th? I think if there is any time before George Lucas dies that we might actually see those cuts again, it probably would be the 50th anniversary. So there's a possibility. I would say the possibility, though, still is low because Lucas does not consider those the definitive editions of his works. And right now, those who are within Lucasfilm have a personal loyalty, even though he's not part of the process anymore, a personal loyalty to Lucas. I think until those people are gone and until Lucas is out of the picture, even informally, we probably won't see that sort of thing because in essence, it's kind of going against the creator's wishes to put out that cut, unless he himself changes his mind. As for anything else I expect for the 50th anniversary, I would hope anything. Star Wars Home Video is absolutely horrible at celebrating anniversaries. For the 10th anniversary, we got stickers put onto the home video releases that said 10th anniversary, and we got an update to an already existing trailer to just have a little 10th anniversary thing before it, and it was moved from the end of the VHS and beta, VHS for sure, to the beginning. That was it. We still didn't get a box set or even a way to package them together with a little paper band for another year or so. So yeah, 10th anniversary was a wash. 20th anniversary did have some stuff, but I would say the 20th anniversary is the fluke. It's the oddball among them because they did the special editions in theaters in 97 for the 20th anniversary. So of course that meant home video releases for the 20th anniversary, but they were of the special editions because the special editions were released in theaters that year. Not anything to do with anything special for home video for the 20th anniversary, if that makes sense. 30th anniversary, 2007? Nope. In fact, it's the only year from 2004 to 2008 that didn't get a new major home video release with a new box set or something, or a new film being released. 2017, 40th anniversary. Nope, not really. I mean, we got Rogue One being released on home video, but again, that's because it had just been released in theaters that previous December. Nothing to do with the anniversary at all. So when it comes to the 50th anniversary in 2027, I would hope that that is a big enough deal, 50 years, to actually do something special. But I'm not holding my breath, and that even assumes that we still see physical home media releases over the next couple of years, because as of the time that I'm recording this, we saw it dwindle down to almost nothing. We've seen Disney pull out of multiple markets and different formats in different markets. It's really only been since this resurgence of saying, hey, maybe we can put the Disney Plus shows on home video, that we've seen any type of physical Star Wars releases in recent memory. Will that even be an option, especially with companies stopping producing players in some cases heading into 2027? We'll see. I would hope they will do something because it's 50. I am absolutely not holding my breath. Next one comes from @DavidLeavitt, if I'm saying that correctly, Leavitt, 835. How many different formats do you own? 8mm, 16mm, beta, VHS, Laserdisc, DVD, etc. How many have you watched? Do you have a preferred format for a given movie? Not necessarily the top of the line. I'd love to see the OT on 70mm, for example. If one became available, would you buy a full film print of any Star Wars movie, 35mm or 70mm? And yeah, for fun, I can ask, can we come over and see your collection? So on that last part, I think my wife would kill me. She already is a little bit wary of me, using our son's name, for example, when doing videos like these or talking about, generally speaking, where we live in the Atlanta metro area. So yeah, I think that'd probably be a no, but that of course was a for fun question. As to the serious question, I actually have an easy way to determine an answer. So one project that I am working on that I hope to make public at some point soon, is just taking forever to do it, is a spreadsheet that I've talked about before that is basically this giant Excel file with a bunch of different workbook pages where I'm tracking all the different stuff that's in my collection, and it's separated with each tab, except for a few of them are things like notes and key to abbreviations and stuff like that. They're actually divided up by formats. So I have Star Wars home video stuff on UHD, Ultra HD Blu-ray, of course, regular HD Blu-ray, Blu-ray 3D, DVD, mini DVD, Laserdisc, VHS, PVD, VHD, Video 8, Beta, U-matic, HD DVD, if you count the one little special effects or whatever it is, or editing, I think it is, special that talks about Star Wars that was on the Bullet HD DVD release. So technically I have one of those, but that's really the only thing that falls under HD DVD here. VCD, Super 8, Video 2000/V2000/VCC, same thing. UMD, CED, Mini Cinex, Kenner Movie Viewer, and I do technically have some 16mm versions of the behind-the-scenes specials, the 3 original behind-the-scenes specials from back in the day. So, assuming I didn't leave anything out there as I was running through, I do have something Star Wars home video related in all of those formats. I actually want to combine my answer to the next part of the question with the question that was asked by it's JERLG. For all the various formats of video/film you have collected in the Star Wars collection, which formats are you able to watch and which have you never been able to view? CED, PAL Laserdisc, V2000, etc. So that allows me to talk about what I've watched, what I haven't watched, and what I've had the ability to watch, which answers kind of both questions at once. So let's see here, going backwards across here. So the Mini Cinex I do actually have. I have been able to watch. Same thing with the Kenner Movie Viewer. I have never owned a CED player, so I have not watched on CED. UMD, I actually owned a PSP, except my PSP was a PSP Go, not a regular PSP, so it was digital only, which turned out to be a stupid-ass decision, but that means I can't watch UMD either. Video 2000, I've never been able to watch, do not have a player for that. 16mm, same thing. Super 8, same thing. VCD, yeah, I've been able to play VCD versions of the films on like the computer and some old DVD players and stuff like that. I mean, it's not great quality, but I've watched it on there. HD DVD is a big no as well. U-matic, also a big no. Beta, oddly enough, have a bunch of them. Have 22, I guess, items that are beta, but no, have not been able to play beta either. Video 8, same thing, although thinking back, I wonder if the old camcorder that we had when I lived with my dad way back in the day when I was a kid, if it's possible that was a Video 8 camcorder. I think that was a VHS-C that he had, so even if I'd had it at the time, I don't think that was the right type of player. I don't think it was a Video 8 player. VHD from Japan, no. PVD, yes, I've had multiple Video Now players, so I've been able to watch the PVDs. VHS, yes, multiple VCRs over the years. Right now, we've got an all-region one that is in our kitchen, actually, of all places, and it basically can play any format going in or any format going out, so it lets me watch the, the NTSC stuff, but also PAL, CCAM, stuff like that. Laserdisc, yes, I have been able to watch the Laserdisc. I do have a Laserdisc player. Actually, I have 2 Laserdisc players right now, one of which is basically a backup. DVD, yes, of course. Mini DVD, yes, of course, because it plays in a regular DVD player. Blu-ray 3D, also, yes, of course, and I love it. I've been able to play Blu-ray 3D on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 4 Pro, and PlayStation 3. And I'm trying to remember, I can't remember which Xbox could have played it, but just I never used it for that. I think it was the Xbox One S, maybe? But I play it on an old, small PlayStation-branded TV. Small, it's about yay big. And sometimes on a PlayStation VR 1 headset, either version 1 or version 2 from the PS4, but right now I don't have that hooked up right now. And then Blu-ray, yes, of course, and Ultra HD Blu-ray, of course, as well. So, a fair amount. The newer you get, the more likely it is I've been able to play it. And of course, foreign formats that just never hit the US, if they're older formats, I generally haven't tried to hunt down a player, even when it's like CED, which is a US format. I haven't tried to hunt down a player because finding working players and actually paying the shipping and getting them shipped safely is still kind of a bit of a mess right now. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole in most respects. And then he also asked about, do you have a preferred format for a given movie to watch? That actually ties into a question asked by @Samuel1Kenobi, who asked, if you were in the mood to watch Star Wars, how do you watch it? Do you watch one of the home media releases you own, or something like the fan-done 4K 77 scan? So, generally speaking, typically if I'm going to watch something from the Star Wars home video library, one of the films, one of the live-action films, I'm going to grab usually one of the newest releases. I say one of because there's multiple packages that all have the same discs basically in them. Typically, I'll just grab one of the UHD 4K releases and pop it into the PS5 in our bedroom to watch it in there. If I'm watching anywhere else, oftentimes I'll be streaming. But preferred format, what I'd rather do, that I don't get a chance to do as often as I would like, would be to watch in 3D. On Blu-ray 3D for any of the modern Disney-era films. They all have 3D releases, even if some of them aren't from within the US. I really like to watch those in 3D, so I'll come in here, turn down the lights, turn on the PlayStation 3, that's really just a glorified Blu-ray player now, pop in that Blu-ray 3D disc, and watch it on that small PlayStation-branded TV with my little 3D active shutter glasses and all. I definitely would prefer to watch any of them in 3D, because that is a preferred format for me to watch basically anything at this point. Which leads into another set of questions. @DominicMGM asks, I have a few. Like you, I am a 3D aficionado. What are your odds we'll see home releases of the 3D conversions of the prequels? Given Disney Plus has a ton of 3D content on the Apple Vision Pro, it seems like a wasted opportunity not to release them on there. Then second question, what is the best 3D in a Star Wars film? Third question, other than that, what is the best 3D you've seen in any motion picture? Odds of home releases of the 3D conversions of the prequels, I think, again, it's pretty slim. At this point, I think it's unfortunate because they already exist. I definitely don't see us getting physical releases anytime soon because in most regions, they've given up on Blu-ray 3D entirely. At this point, you pretty much have to import from Japan, which drives me nuts because I always miss the initial hours of being able to pre-order an MCU film in 3D from Japan and wind up having to turn to eBay later on because Amazon Japan sells out like that every single time. But yeah, I don't see it happening. The fact that there's 3D content for Apple Vision Pro, I don't think really is a selling point because my understanding is Apple Vision Pro has, generally speaking, been a bit of a financial flop. I don't think I know a single person who has even tried one at this point. So I don't see that being an impetus to put that onto Disney+. Best 3D in a Star Wars film? That's really hard for me to separate from the film itself. I think that Rogue One was really solid, but it's really hard for me to say which one has the best. I will say that most Star Wars 3D is more like diorama style, where it's more things going into the screen, or it's more like you see depth as you look into your screen going backwards into the background. There's not really a lot of stuff that's designed to sort of stand out and poke out of the screen, except maybe a few shots of ships. So generally speaking, I'd probably say Rogue One or maybe Solo. Those are the ones I've watched most recently in 3D and really enjoyed them. But again, I just really enjoy those as romps of films, frankly. So really, it's hard to pin down which one stands out as the best. None of them are super outstanding, but they're solid. Put it that way. As to the best 3D I've ever seen in a motion picture, probably something like Avatar, something that was actually shot in 3D rather than post-conversion. Although I do have a fondness for post-conversion on things you never would have expected to ever be in 3D before. Like, being able to see the prequels in 3D would be awesome. I saw Phantom Menace in theaters. Just because you wouldn't have thought at the time they would ever be in 3D. One that stands out to me like that is Top Gun. Top Gun actually got a 3D conversion that's pretty dang good for something that is not ever designed for 3D and a movie that goes back into the 80s. It just kind of gives me hope that we'll see more of that sort of thing. The Terminator 2 3D release is also outstanding. So yeah, there are some great ones out there. I would say that none of the Star Wars ones hold a candle to like T2, but that's just because of the nature of how they did the conversion, I think. And then finishing out that other question from David about the would I buy a full film print if one became available? I guess it kind of depends on the price, but I don't really, that's not really something I collect. I do have some 16mm reels, but just because of the nature of how they're kind of unwieldy size-wise and where the heck do I put them, they're kind of tucked away in a tub in here that I really haven't dealt with a whole lot. And it's not home video per se, so it's not something I really pursue as much. If someone were to give one to me, sure, to have it in the collection, but is it something I would actively seek out and be looking to spend a lot of money on, which is pretty much what would be required? Probably not. All right. Then we have one from probably my favorite username of any of these that I'm seeing here, which is Hey Ocarina. So the questions are, I'll ask a few. 1. If there was one format, HD DVD, D-Theater, UMD, etc., you wish got a Star Wars release, which would it be? 2. What's your most memorable experience with Star Wars in the theater itself? Any interesting / fun experiences going to midnight premieres back when they used to do those? And then 3, I may or may not be correct on this, but did you always know that you wanted to teach or be involved in education? What did you want to be growing up? Okay, so let's see. So first there, if there was one I wish would get a release, what would it be that didn't get one? I mean, for certain films, obviously I would like to see Blu-ray 3D, but there are Star Wars Blu-ray 3D releases. I guess probably the one that would stand out to me is I'd like to see an HD DVD release. It would have been nice if Clone Wars, the film Clone Wars, had happened a little bit earlier in real life so that maybe it was still in the midst of that format war, so the HD DVD was still considered somewhat viable, so maybe we could have gotten an HD DVD release of that. I mean, some regions even got a UMD version of the Clone Wars, and yet we never got HD DVD. Again, that bullet HD DVD is really kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel, but it's the one way that I've got to actually include something HD DVD in my Star Wars home video library. Most memorable experience with Star Wars in a theater itself, interesting fun experiences. So I vaguely remember Return of the Jedi when I was very young. And I say vaguely because when I think about that, I know that I had that experience going multiple times with my mom and that sort of thing. But when I sit back and think about it, the visual that comes to mind is a visual from an old trading card around that time, as if it was up on a big screen. And I don't think that shot was actually ever in the movie, which suggests to me that it's not really a memory so much as I'm just kind of like Mandela affecting myself or something, whatever you call it, concocting a memory. We did do when I was in high school. So my junior year, second semester of my junior year, was when the special editions came out in theaters. And I was a stickler for school. I tried not to miss school. In fact, at our school, if you had perfect attendance for a given, I think it was a semester maybe, there's a special thing where you would get to go on a field trip to the mall. Yeah, anybody who had perfect attendance got a field trip one day to the mall where you could just go around, buy stuff, eat, have fun, and then go back to school. That was bizarre, but it was a thing for us. So I tried to have perfect attendance and not miss ever, except when those special editions were coming out. I wanted to be in there to see them on the first day, hopefully first showing. So me and my best friend at the time, a guy who I consider sort of like a brother at this point, not even really a friend, he lived with us for a while, kind of a part of the family now. He and I both got parents to basically call us in with the Star Wars flu, so to speak, so that for each of those premiere days for the special editions, we could go get something to eat real quick, because we all had our licenses now, go get something to eat real quick, and go see the first showing of the special edition of whichever original trilogy film was released that day. The only times of purposely skipping school that I can think of in my time as a student. And then years later, we had the premiere of The Phantom Menace, and we bought, first off, it was at a brand new movie theater. It had just opened in our town. We bought tickets to every showing for like the entire first day, and went as a big group to go do that in the midnight showing, and then later, some of the tickets went to waste because we just needed to sleep. But a big thing for me for Phantom Menace was that, my mom had taken me to see, apparently Empire Strikes Back as a baby. I'm sorry, early moviegoers. And to see Return of the Jedi as a kid multiple times. So when the time came for Phantom Menace, I decided to sort of return the favor and took my mom to see Phantom Menace, which is pretty cool. Then for Attack of the Clones, there was a midnight showing, but it was interesting because it was the last midnight showing that I would see in my hometown, because it came out in the latter half, like beginning of the latter half of May 2002. I had just graduated from college and was about to move to Georgia. So it was a group thing, again, to go see that. And otherwise, I've been doing midnight showings since then. I've had a chance to do the midnight showings of all the more recent films, or the premiere preview night, whatever you call it, of all of them with my wife at this point, which has been cool. Probably the biggest memory with the most recent ones of those was just, having to find a sitter, basically somebody who could stay with our son so that we could go see the movie when it came time for, I guess it was really just Rise of Skywalker, because Solo came out in May of 18, and he wasn't born until later that year. So it was really just Rise of Skywalker. We actually had to manage childcare to go see an early showing or the first showing, realizing, oh, this is what people have to go through. Let's see. And teaching, gosh, so no, I did not always want to be a teacher. For those who don't know, I have been a full-time social studies teacher for high school since 2002, as I mentioned, moving to Georgia. That was to take a teaching job. I now teach fully online, but still full-time high school students only, for the most part, have middle school every now and then, because we can sort of mix those two together now in the position that I'm in now. So I've been doing it for a long time, and it seems sort of like a natural fit now, whether it was with, the Star Wars Timeline Gold as a resource I was creating, writing the book A Saga on Home Video, Star Wars Home Video Year by Year from the Star Wars Home Video Library, before that, from the Star Wars Library, these video series that are all about sort of educating about stuff that I'm passionate about. You would think it would have been an obvious fit. But no. When I was in early high school, I actually planned on going into journalism. I wanted to write for magazines, newspapers, websites weren't really as much of a thing quite yet at that point. But that didn't go so well, high school-wise. I had an affinity for it. I apparently had a talent for it, won an award for some editorial type writing that I did, like a state award kind of thing. But the thing about it was that I had underestimated how incredibly political the school system I grew up in actually was. So I was sort of excelling in journalism stuff. When I became a junior in high school, there was a chance kind of for me to be the editor in chief because they kind of wanted me to be in that position. And yet the realization was there were people who had seniority over me and they would be pissed if I sort of leapfrogged over them. So they actually created a special position for me as sort of like a second in command called the junior assistant editor. And then when it came time for senior year, I was the editor in chief. And I was editor in chief of that school paper for one issue. Because basically, we had kind of a weird setup here, something I can't imagine a teacher trying to do these days. Our journalism advisor slash teacher in the ELA department decided that it would be a good idea to really kind of get attention to put out a first issue of the school paper on the first day of school. And to do that meant that a small group of members of the team met at that teacher's apartment, unsupervised except for the teacher, multiple days during that summer break, including way into the wee hours of the night sometimes only one or two at a time, depending on who was available. But we got it done. We got a first issue out on the first day. And I was kind of known at the time for editorial writing, opinion writing within the school and on the team. And they were like, hey, you should do an editorial for this one, and you should tie it into sort of the regular editorial page thing that's supposed to be like the voice of the paper, and then have one of your own, but have it on a similar topic and tie the two together. Wouldn't that be cool? Sure, why not? What did people want me to write about? What were we going to talk about? And after some discussion, the topic was the fact that the school board had recently changed the school calendar. So basically, school would start earlier. So for seniors, that last summer of high school before you're about to graduate, that chance to hang out with your friends one more time during summer before the last school year of your high school career starts, got cut significantly shorter. And seniors were pissed. So that's basically what the editorial was about, talking about how seniors were disappointed and frustrated by the lack of that chunk of summer that they usually could count on, and the fact that, for the most part, this is a decision that seemed to be made by adults without students really having a voice in the process as to, do we want to give up that chunk of summer? Because for those who were still in school, it just kind of shifted stuff, so they got out a little earlier and that kind of thing. But for seniors, it was important because it was that last summer before senior year. So I had kind of a more tongue-in-cheek, sort of more scathing, humorous, biting version. But then there's also the one that's kind of the voice of the paper. And I referred to it as being pickpocketed, basically, of without knowing it, all of a sudden you've lost this week of your senior summer experience, whatever. Well, that included criticizing those who made the decision, including the school board superintendent and so on. And as my stepfather is fond of saying, shit rolls downhill. So, the superintendent got pissed and came down on, I believe, the principal. The principal got pissed and came down on the ELA department advisor, who came down on the journalism advisor within the department, who came down on me. No matter how much we learned about, Tinker v. Des Moines and Hazelwood v. Kohlmeyer and all these Supreme Court cases about freedom of speech within schools, as long as it's not disruptive, that doesn't mean much in a very politicized school system when shit is rolling downhill and building up momentum. And when it finally hit, basically, my understanding is that the journalism advisor's job was on the line. She had to demote me. And she busted me down from being the editor-in-chief to being the co-editor of a page with that brother of mine, which was fun, but a major slap in the face for all I had worked to become the editor-in-chief, in very much earning that position. And sure enough, that was not the last of it, because I still got the criticism throughout that semester and kind of that side eye, essentially. So finally I said, screw it. I'm not doing this anymore. I need something else to fill that time, because this was not an extracurricular activity where you were just there after school. You had a class period designated as a work time to work on the newspaper. So I needed something to fill that gap. And I had taken AP US History and US History with the same teacher, who was awesome. Fantastic way of looking at things, fantastic way of kind of breaking things down into whys and what ifs to really understand the depth of history. And I got the option to be his teaching assistant instead of that newspaper class for second semester, which caused me to get a chance to kind of see the inside of being a history teacher. And I found that it was something I really enjoyed, kind of thinking about, and the way that you would design things, kind of understanding how assignments are designed, assessments are designed, and stuff like that. I was intrigued by this, and I had always had an interest in things like history, in politics. Oddly enough, not economics, because our economics class was basically watching track videos most of the time, as opposed to actually learning a whole lot about economics at all. Didn't really get into economics until I was in college. And it was something I found myself interested in. I thought, you know what, I could do this. And it turned out that I was accepted to the same college as that mentor teacher on, I believe, even the same scholarship as that teacher. Not exactly the same major, because he went into music education first, and history was like the secondary subject. But for me, it was all straight social studies. But that kind of moved me in that direction, and I found that, over time, it gave me a chance to sort of still tell stories about stuff I was passionate about while educating in the process of doing so. And as a teacher, first it was summers off, and then now, it's kind of the weird flexible schedule that I have with teaching online, still giving me a chance to do other things that I find interesting to present information, to do something entertaining, like hopefully the videos here on the channel. So it wound up being kind of a good thing that it happened, because journalism is certainly not a very stable career, especially in print media. But it all was because someone couldn't take criticism high up in the food chain and decided to shit on everyone down the line. Otherwise, it's very possible I may have been in perhaps like working at a local news outlet at this point in my life and never having moved to Georgia at all, for all I know. A very different path could have been had it not been for someone not being able to take criticism about not consulting students before taking away part of summer break, which, granted, the seniors were overly frustrated about in context. Putting things in perspective, it was a small complaint, but it was enough of a complaint to voice, and the adults in the room up at the top couldn't take it. All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and cut this one here. We will have a second video coming up soon that'll have more of the Q&A questions that were already placed there as of late May 2025. And then, of course, again, if you want to ask questions in the comments here or on that next video, feel free, and I'll gather those for future possible use. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you on the next Q&A.